America's toughest mountain man, a legend of resilience, just lost everything.
When Tom Orr vanished from Mountain Men, fans assumed the worst. Maybe old age, maybe failing health. But the truth? It's far more shocking. After 50 years in the wild and 10 on national television, the last true frontiersman finally broke his silence and revealed a reason so personal, even the producers didn't see it coming. This isn't just the end of a TV career, it's the end of an era. And once you hear why he walked away, you'll never look at Mountain Men the same way again. Long before Mountain Men, Tom Orr was just a restless Illinois kid with calloused hands and a taste for danger. By his teens, he'd found his first calling the rodeo. 8 seconds on a bull felt like freedom and chaos rolled into one, every scar a medal of defiance. But applause fades fast, and Tom began to see the rodeo for what it was, a cage with cheering spectators. He wanted silence, not spotlights. That craving for true freedom would pull him toward the edge of civilization and keep him there for life. Then came Nancy. She wasn't just a partner, she was the other half of his wild heart. Together, they left the noise behind, heading north until the paved roads ended and the wilderness began. Montana wasn't romantic, it was merciless. No electricity, no comfort, no safety net. Winters froze your soul. Summers brought predators to the porch. But for Tom and Nancy, hardship was proof they were alive. Love, for them, wasn't about flowers, it was about firewood, hunger, and survival side by side. For decades, they lived unseen until a film crew stumbled across their remote life. Suddenly, the quiet trapper from the Yaak Valley became the face of Mountain Men. The show turned Tom into a folk hero, the last frontiersman. But with fame came invasion. Cameras replaced calm, viewers replaced solitude. For a man who measured peace by the crackle of a campfire, fame felt like noise he never asked for. As ratings soared, Tom remained the show's anchor, humble, genuine, timeless, but privately, he felt trapped again. Tourists hiked to his doorstep, strangers called his home a landmark. He didn't crave attention, he craved quiet. The wilderness was supposed to free him, yet the world had followed him even there. He once said, "You can't live free when everyone's watching." And every new season proved him right. Living off the land isn't a cinematic adventure, it's war against nature. Frostbite, broken bones, failing knees, his body carried decades of punishment. Tom still chopped wood and set traps, but every swing of the axe hurt more than the last. The question haunted him. If he fell out there alone, how long before Nancy found him? That fear, the quiet one he never spoke aloud, began to outweigh the thrill of endurance. The show edited out the exhaustion, the financial uncertainty, the creeping realization that the lifestyle he'd mastered was slowly mastering him. Each year felt heavier. Tom and Nancy whispered about how much longer they could hold on. Fans saw strength. Behind the lens was fragility, the kind that comes when a man begins to understand that time itself is his final predator. It began like any other Montana winter, quiet, cold, deceptive. Tom thought he knew what was coming. He'd survived 50 winters before, but this one hit different. The snow didn't fall, it attacked. Every morning he dug their cabin out just to reach the door. The wind screamed so loud it drowned out his thoughts. Even the river froze solid, silencing the world around them. One morning, against Nancy's pleading, Tom headed out to check his trap lines. Those lines were more than income, they were identity, proof that he could still keep up with the wild. But the wild had its own plans. Within hours, temperatures plunged 40 degrees. The path vanished beneath a white wall of chaos. His breath froze mid-air, his gloves stiffened into ice. He'd walked that route hundreds of times, yet suddenly he couldn't tell north from home. His heart pounded slow, heavy, his vision tunneled. Every step felt like defiance against something far bigger than him. In that silence, that blinding, endless white, he realized he wasn't fighting the storm, he was fighting time. By the time he stumbled back, he was nearly frozen solid. Nancy met him at the door, panic in her eyes. She stripped off his ice-caked coat, dragged him to the fire, wrapped him in every blanket they owned. For hours she sat beside him, whispering, "Don't you dare leave me, Tom." When he finally stirred, his words came out cracked and hoarse. "I thought I could beat it. But the mountain doesn't care who you are." That night, watching the fire burn low, Tom saw something he hadn't noticed in years, Nancy's hands shaking as she stoked the embers. The years of worry etched into her face. He realized she had carried every silent fear he refused to name. She wasn't just living in the wild, she was surviving him, choosing it over everything else. For the next few weeks, they talked like they hadn't in decades. No cameras, no crew, just truth. When do we stop? When does living become risking too much? He confessed something he'd never said aloud. I don't want the mountain to decide when it ends. I want to decide. From that moment, something in him changed. He stopped venturing past the tree line when the sky turned gray. He started cherishing the still mornings with Nancy more than the chase for fur. That storm didn't defeat him, it awakened him. It wasn't about weakness, it was about wisdom. After half a century of surviving, Tom Orr finally understood. The real victory was knowing when to let the wilderness rest. When Tom finally told fans he was stepping away, headlines rushed to fill in the blanks. Some said it was his health. Others whispered about burnout, age, or production disputes. But Tom never cared about what people guessed, because none of them were even close. The truth, as he later shared in a rare, soft-spoken interview, wasn't about failure or fatigue. It was about freedom. Real freedom, the kind he'd spent his whole life chasing, had quietly changed its shape. For decades, freedom meant distance, from cities, from people, from comfort. But as he grew older, he realized the truest kind of freedom wasn't escaping the world. It was learning when to stop running. He looked back on the years behind him, the storms, the cameras, the constant fight to prove he still could. He thought of Nancy wading through nights of worry, of his grown children who had spent more years watching him on television than visiting him in person. He thought about legacy, not fame, but memory. What would they remember him for? The man who outlasted the mountain, or the man who never came down from it? Tom's decision wasn't sudden. It brewed slowly, like winter creeping into fall. After that brutal storm, he started noticing things he used to ignore. The tremor in his hands when he carved, the ache that stayed in his knees long after a day's work, the quiet sigh from Nancy each time he said, "Just one more season." He'd spent half a century surviving. Now he wanted to live. The truth is, mountain men gave him everything, but it also took something precious: privacy. He was tired of every quiet moment being turned into a scene. He missed the simple mornings when the only audience was a chickadee on the porch rail. And more than anything, he feared leaving Nancy behind, alone in a cabin that was built for two hearts beating the same rhythm. He once told a close friend, "The wild taught me how to live, but it never taught me how to grow old." That line stayed with him. He realized that the wilderness doesn't care about human stories. It doesn't know what fame is, or seasons, or deadlines. It just is. And maybe, after all these years, it was time to stop trying to keep pace with something eternal. So, he made a promise to Nancy and to himself. No more chasing the next storm. No more proving anything to anyone. He would leave while he was still strong enough to walk away on his own 2 feet. He'd earned that right. When the crew from Mountain Men came for what would become his final season, they didn't know it at first, but Tom did. Every sunrise he filmed, every line he spoke, he treated as if it might be his last. He didn't announce it, he just lived it. And when filming wrapped, he didn't give a grand farewell. He simply shook hands, thanked everyone, and said, "Time to go home." That's the real reason he wanted it to end. Not because he'd lost his fire, but because he'd finally found his peace. Tom Orr wasn't retreating from the wilderness. He was returning to the one thing he'd been searching for since the beginning: quiet. Today, Tom and Nancy live quietly in Florida, simpler, warmer, but still free. He still crafts leather by hand, still rises with the sun, but the race is over. When asked if he misses the fame, he just smiles. "I miss the snow sometimes, but not the noise." Tom Orr didn't quit. He chose peace over performance. And maybe that's what the wild was trying to teach him all along, that real strength isn't holding on, it's knowing when to let go. If Tom's story moved you, hit like as it to a man who lived the life we all secretly dream about. Subscribe for more untold stories of courage, love, and the people who still carry the spirit of the frontier. Because legends don't vanish, they simply fade into the trees they called home.